In this episode, we're going to look at audio interfaces, which is another great way to improve the audio for your video. Check this out. Now, in the past, we have talked about a number of ways to get great audio for your videos, and there's another option that we haven't talked a whole lot about, and that is using an audio interface. Now, this would really take the place of a field recorder of some sort or going directly into your camera. And an audio interface is a device that allows you to use professional level microphones. And what it does is it takes the signal or the sound from your microphone, converts it into a digital signal, and then sends it to your computer or an iPad. So let's take a look at these a little bit more closely and see if it's a good option for the type of shooting that you're doing. First question, why would you even consider doing this? Well, from my point of view, I think that for a very reasonable price, you can get superb audio quality with an audio interface and a good quality professional microphone. So it's not the right choice for every situation or for every type of shooter. I want to make that crystal clear. But if you are the type of shooter that often shoots in one place, say for example, if you have your YouTube channel and you're shooting typically from your home or in one location, or you'll be using an iPad with an audio interface that's a little bit more portable and it just sort of suits your style, this may be a great option for you. So let's look at it in a little more detail. Well, an audio interface is usually a piece of hardware that has a one or more microphone input with a preamplifier. So it takes the signal from the microphone and amplifies it to a level that is usable. Then what it does is it converts that signal into a digital signal and then sends it to your computer or your iPad. Now, obviously, there are a variety of different interfaces that you can use, and they have different types of buses. And by bus, I mean a type of connection. So there can be a USB connection, and most of them these days are USB 2. There can also be Firewire connections, and there can also be Thunderbolt. So the last two are usually for the higher end interfaces, not so much for the entry level. But they're making great interfaces with USB 2. Now, on the interface, there's typically going to be an XLR input. The Xlr cable is a professional audio cable. It has 3 pins on it. It's a fairly heavy gauge cable. You've seen them before, I'm sure, in one place or another. Typically, bands on stage will almost always have XLR cables to their mics. And what this allows you to do is connect your mic to the audio interface. But the great thing about XLR cables that you don't get with the smaller gauge cables that we have on things like, we've talked about a lot of the lavalier microphones that just have a little 3.5 millimeter input to either an audio field recorder or to your camera, is that XLR cables are balanced, meaning that they can actually reject a lot of electromagnetic interference and noise that you might pick up. So you can do a much longer run of this type of cable without introducing a whole bunch of noise and hiss. Probably the biggest feature of using an audio interface to capture your audio is that you have the choice of thousands, literally thousands, of professional level microphones, and they range all across the board. So for example, here is a Shure Sm58, which is a classic microphone you'll see in a lot of places. Almost every band that performs live has used one of these as a vocal microphone, and they're really great. They have their place definitely in video as well. I think if you're doing coverage of shows, like at conventions and things of that nature, it's a great microphone. I also personally use it for capturing my voiceover when I'm doing some sort of software tutorial, so doing a screencast. I really like to use the Sm58 because in my little room, I've got the computer with its fans going. I've got kind of an echoey room that's not really well acoustically treated, so there's some echo and things of that nature. And what's great about the Sm58 in that circumstance is it's really good at just picking up my voice and rejecting a lot of the other noise. So really great at kind of isolating the signal that you're trying to get. Obviously, there are lots of other choices as well. A lot of vloggers these days are also using these kind of chunky-looking, large diaphragm condenser microphones, which are also typically used for recording vocals and also guitar amps for music production. There are also, of course, shotgun microphones, and we've talked a whole lot about the Rode NTG2, which is my shotgun mic that I use. Obviously, it'll also support any sort of lavalier microphone that has an XLR output. And you can also use some fairly obscure microphones. In this case, for example, I have, and this whole video here is being recorded with a ribbon microphone. And in this case, I'm using the Golden Age Project R1 Active Mark III, which is a mouthful. But it's a really great mic, and I really love the sound that it produces. It has this wonderful kind of rich tone to it that's really, really fun to use. Now, when you're looking for an audio interface, there are a gazillion options, and we're going to talk about just a few of them here at the end of the video, but let me talk about the types of features you want to look for if you do decide you want to get into recording with an audio interface. And that'll kind of help guide you and help you to make some decisions about what's going to fit best for your type of shooting. Obviously, the first thing you want to look for is what kind of bus does it use? So is it going to be USB? Can it connect to my iPad? Is it Firewire? Is it Thunderbolt? So you've got to get what's going to work in your particular case. A lot of the newer USB interfaces will also connect to iPads. So that's an awesome option because then you have a lot more flexibility. You can record to your computer or you can record to your iPad. Now you also want to look at how many microphone preamplifiers it has included. Most of the entry-level ones will have either 1 or 2 microphone preamplifiers. And really all you have to consider here is how many people you're going to be recording at a time. If you're going to be doing an interview where you're going to have 2 people on camera at a time, then you might want to make sure you get one that has 2 mic preamps. One feature to consider that you may not use right away, but it may be helpful down the line is these audio interfaces, because they are so much higher quality in terms of producing audio and capturing audio. They're also great to drive your speakers or your monitors that you have at your computer. And so what you'll want to check is on the audio interface you're looking at, does it have 2 line outs for left and right channels for your future monitor needs? Now, one of the most important factors is the bit rate. And fortunately, at this point in the game, almost all of the audio interfaces support 24-bit. 24-bit is really what you want. Now, some of the older ones would only support 16-bit. 16-bit is okay because that's typically what we're going to put out or publish our videos or films with. But at capture time, it's advantageous to capture in 24-bit because that way in post-processing, even if you don't end up doing post-processing, you're fine with 24-bit because you just convert it down to 16-bit. But if you capture in 24-bit and you have a couple things you want to maybe just clean up or fine-tune a little bit with your audio, you get a lot more room and a lot more latitude to push things around and get them exactly how you want them. Another thing you'll see advertised when you look at audio interfaces is sample rate. And I wouldn't worry too much about this because it's kind of funny. I don't understand why they make such a big deal about it. But, a lot of times they'll advertise 96 kilohertz. And some of the really high-end ones will go to 192 kilohertz. The fact of the matter is, all this is telling you how many times it kind of takes a reading of the sound per second. And the truth is that you're going to be publishing yours at 48 kilohertz for video and film, which is kind of the standard for Blu-ray and pretty much every video output format. But those higher sample rates are really meant for kind of high-end audio, high-end music production. Even there, I don't really see a big difference, and don't hate me if I'm being ignorant, and there is some advantage to that, but you're really not going to see a difference for recording dialogue, so don't worry too much about that. If you can do 48 kilohertz or higher, that's great. Next factor is something called latency. Now, latency is not going to be as important for us shooting video for the most part. It's really more of a concern for music producers. And the idea here is latency is there's always a period of time. So if you're having the audio interface play back a previously recorded track and then you're recording on top of that with another track, what's going to happen is there's going to be a little bit of latency from the time the other track plays back and what you're recording. So it can kind of get tricky if you're trying to do multi-track recording, which is typically, again, going to be something for musicians, not so much for us. Most of the time, we're recording kind of real time along with the video, so not a huge deal. But one thing you can do, there's not really a spec that can tell you, what the latency is like on an audio interface. But if you stick with one of the better manufacturers or one of the more better established manufacturers, most of them are pretty good about maintaining their drivers. And the driver is really kind of the key to making sure there's not too much latency. So not a huge deal. Don't worry about it too much, but do stick with one of the more reputable manufacturers. What are those? Well, there are a bunch of them out there. But we're going to talk about one in particular that I hope you'll find that helpful. Now, I've had interfaces from a variety of manufacturers. I've had an M Audio, Roland, Edirol, same company, and now Focusrite. And they've all been really good. So those are 3 really kind of reputable brands I think you can trust. They do a good job at keeping their drivers updated, and they make pretty quality audio, or quality devices. So if you are looking out there, in addition to those kind of the features we talked about, those are 3 good brands to look at. Currently, I use a Focusrite Saffire Pro 24 DSP, great interface. It's kind of a mid-range interface. It's Firewire, so you're really tied to a computer in this particular case. But there are some advantages it has over some of the lower-end models that work with iPads in addition to computers. But let's talk about a couple of kind of entry-level audio interfaces that, again, these are going to get great audio quality, better than most field recorders, and something worth looking at if you are interested in getting into an audio interface. First one is the Focusrite 2i2. This is a USB 2 audio interface. It has 2 microphone preamplifiers. It only works with a computer, a Mac, or a PC, and it works great with both of them. It does not work with an iPad, so it's definitely for those cases where you're going to be recording at home near your computer. But it has these fantastic preamplifiers, same ones I've got on my microphone preamp or my audio interface, and they're very, very clean, great pristine audio, and it has a good amount of gain. It's very simple to use, and I think definitely worth looking at. It does 24-bit, does up to 96 kilohertz, and just a great device. Second one to look at, if you're more interested, especially in recording to an iPad versus a computer, or you actually can record to a computer with this one as well, but Focusrite also makes something called the iTrack Solo, and it only has 1 mic preamp, but it can record, again, to an iPad or to a computer, and it has the same microphone preamplifier that mine has and the 2i2 have. Very clean audio, again, 24-bit, 96 kilohertz. Great device. Go to the links down below if you want to find out more about them. The 2i2 runs for about $150 US at current prices, and the iTrack Solo is about $120 US current prices. So they're really kind of not horribly expensive to get into. And then, of course, obviously you have a whole range of different mics you can grow into over time as you have the budget to add the additional mics to your closet. Just one thing to keep in mind, that as far as producing film and videos, keep in mind that audio is really at least 50% of the overall production, and psychologically possibly more than that. It really kind of inspires a different feel for your audience when they hear really quality audio. And obviously the visuals are very important too, duh. But audio, if you can get your audio up to high quality, it really seems to inspire confidence. If you've got great visuals, but the audio is just so-so, I think people feel that it kind of has a cheap feel to it. So I hope you found this helpful. If you've got any questions about audio interfaces, go ahead and leave those down in the comments below. And between our little community here and myself, we'll be sure to get you some answers or get you to the right place where you can get answers. Hope you found this helpful. Thanks again for tuning in. If you haven't subscribed already, go ahead and do that, and we'll be sure to get you more great videos on how to improve your lighting and sound for video. Talk with you soon.